Hey everyone, and welcome to the latest Video Attic new release roundup. I'm your host Michael Vaughn, and I'm the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema, and my bylines include Films in Review, Screen Magazine, and AMC's The Bite. As always, I'm not alone in my exploration of new films, and with me is an incredibly talented co-host, and I'm gonna take it at a...
Thanks, Mike. My name is Dylan Gonzalez. I am a senior critic for geekvibesnation.com, and I'm also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. I review pretty much all of the home video releases for the site. So any reviews that we talk about today that you want to get a little bit more in depth on, you can go read my reviews there. I will cover all of my reviews and some of Mike's titles, but not all of them. He has a few exclusives. But first, I want to just jump right into my first title for a review I've already published, but I wanted to talk about it again. And that is Ghostbusters Afterlife. I don't think this title is breaking news to anyone. It's the newest jump into the Ghostbusters world after the 2016 Ghostbusters with Melissa McCarthy. This goes back to more of the I guess kind of established timeline from the earlier films, and it kind of carries on that legacy. And this film itself carries on it has a lot of themes of legacy. It's kind of a little bit less comedically driven than the earlier films, and it's more like kind of like a family film, kind of almost like, I don't want to compare it to Stranger Things necessarily, just because one of the stars is in there, but it kind of has like kind of that more family friendly tone. Which worked well for me. That's kind of the mood I was feeling recently, as you'll see with one of my next titles. I think the way they handle kind of the older reverence to the older material with this new stuff is really great. And this 4K is really great too. Has Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos audio. It has a pretty good assortment of special features. Sony always does a great job with their 4K releases. So if you're a fan of the film, 4K is the way to go, because the Blu-ray, I believe, has just DTS 5.1. So if you want the full Dolby Atmos audio, go for the 4K. So
You want to feel that pure Dolby fantasy.
you have to feel it in your bones.
Okay, awesome. So my first title I'm so excited for, which is Kino Studio Classics, Some Like It Hot on Ultra HD. And here's a better look at the special features. And slipcover. And also beautiful. Worth noting, here's what the inside looks like. That this has a Blu-ray, but it's just for the special features. So it is just the 4K feature. So now, unlike the Great Escape, I did actually own this previously from Criterion. So it was nice because I did get to have a chance to kind of compare as far as like which one looks better. I think that this edges the Criterion out as far as how it looks and sounds. It certainly has like that finer detail versus the Criterion. Now the Criterion is a 4K scan on Blu-ray, but this is actually a 4K Ultra HD. There are features that are not on the Criterion release, but having said that, there are some features that are not on, on the other release. So, if you're a big fan, I would probably say get both of those. It's well worth double dipping, in my opinion. Excellent release. Just how it looks is well worth the price alone, but then again, you get a ton of nice features. So really exciting. Also, Billy Wilder fans have cause to celebrate because I believe it's March 8th, they're going to be doing the apartment on Ultra HD. Also from Kino Studio Classics, so look out for that. I'm sure we'll be reviewing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't really go into a review of this movie, but it's such a classic. It's one of maybe like the best 50s comedies. So yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, just drop everything. Just drop it. Go watch it.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw that movie, it was like when I was a lot younger and I was like at our friend's house and they had like, it was either a DVD or VHS copy. And I really enjoyed it. I really liked the story and just like, I think that was the first time I'd really like seen Marilyn Monroe on screen and just like after knowing her as a figure. So just seeing that movie just kind of like really made an impact on me. And I've had the Blu-ray for a while, the standard like MGM Blu-ray, but I did get that 4K in earlier this week, but I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I'm super excited.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to be blown away. It's like, so, you know, it is a black and white film and, you know, there's like right away, like the movie starts out in a night scene and just how like crisp and clean and clear everything is. It's a little bit heavy on the grain, but I mean, it's a film from 1959. So you're going to kind of expect a little bit of like film like grain, but I actually kind of like that. So it's not
natural. It's film grain. So it's shot in film. So you're supposed to have grain. So. I'll dive into my next title. It's maybe the polar opposite of Some Like It Hot, and it's another family film, and that is Clifford, the Big Red Dog, because as I mentioned in our last recording, I have been watching I watched a lot of movies at Sundance, and now I'm getting into like a lot of the thick of awards season. And there are so many films that are just so heavy and depressing all the time that I was just totally game to like just spend some time with my big boy Clifford. And it's not like award-winning stuff here, but it is good, like solid family-friendly entertainment. I mean, for adults, like without kids, I could see some people struggling just like if they're just wanting to sit down for a movie. But if you are kind of looking for that type of entertainment, I mean, Clifford, he gets into some stuff. He's a big red dog and he's all around town, just like just causing a ruckus. And the Blu-ray itself, it is one of like actually the better looking Blu-rays I've ever seen. It's like so clear and crisp and like it springs for Dolby Atmos audio. So like it really brings it. And I mean, the special features here, I mean, they're not super substantial. They're just kind of like 4 or 5 minute type things that are kind of surface level. But I don't think most kids care that much about special features, and I don't think the adults necessarily need like a 40-minute documentary on Clifford necessarily. I mean, I'd probably watch it, but I guess you don't need it. But overall, if you're looking for like solid family-friendly entertainment, I mean, it's fun. That's all I can ask for. I needed it. So
yeah. That sounds awesome. I've been actually kind of meaning to check that out because it's something that, I mean, I don't have kids, but like that's sort of something that I grew up with. So it might be kind of neat to check out. So that actually kind of segues nicely into my next movie, which is DC's Catwoman Hunted.
I just finished watching that like 10 minutes before our recording.
Yeah, it's really awesome. So it's really nice slipcover in the back. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the plot because I think it has a really nice cast of characters. There is like definitely some nice surprises in there, but I actually have to say that I'm really impressed with these DC animated movies. I know they had a ton of really great ones last year. And this one isn't really my favorite, but it's definitely a solid watch. I had a lot of fun, and they're not very long. They're like what, like 80 minutes, if that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
like just under 80 minutes.
yeah, so a really nice breezy watch. I'm always so impressed by the voice acting and just like how they're able to sort of seamlessly sort of blend their voice talents together. So yeah, probably if you're not a diehard DC fan, I don't know if this is necessarily like a must own or watch, but I thought it was really fun. Again, not the best, but certainly worth checking out. So again, that's the and
Yeah, I did really enjoy that one. It had a really like atypical tone for a DC movie. It kind of felt like from the opening, which I really loved, it kind of had like a jazzy feel about it. And like Catwoman's like just this really sultry figure. And she like has a lot of like play on words. And like she gets like really, really flirtatious with Batwoman too. And there's like some interesting dynamics between them. And then there were a lot of like villains that like you said, I don't want to spoil stuff, but there was like characters that would show up and I was like, oh, I didn't know that they were like that closely tied. I know they were in the DC universe, but I didn't know certain people were tied so closely with Catwoman. And like you said, the voice acting is great. I loved hearing Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul as Black Mask. That was a lot of fun. So yeah, I recommend it.
yeah, it's again, it's a lot of fun. Not my favorite, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So my next, oh, I'm sorry, God.
It's cool. I'm trying to stay in the land of DC. You gotta let me talk about one of my favorite DC TV properties airing right now, and that is Stargirl, the second season that just came out. And so whenever I first saw Stargirl, like I was kind of feeling a little bit of the DC TV burnout because like Arrow was about to end and The Flash had been kind of going on for a little bit too long. So I was just like, do I really need like another DC TV show? And then I watched the first season of Stargirl and I was blown away. I was like, completely throw away everything that I was talking about. This is great. It feels more like cinematic than a lot of the CW shows. Like it's kind of like what shows like Doom Patrol and Titans, like whenever they premiered on like HBO Max and DC Universe originally, they made it feel like more like substantial. And I love the look of the show. And just whenever Stargirl did end up transitioning to the CW, it never really lost that kind of flavor of stuff. And this season in particular, it starts going into some darker, almost like horror like realms that's really intriguing and start bringing in new characters that you might not expect to see in here. And I'm just really happy that even though it transitioned to the CW, it doesn't seem like their budget has really been slashed that much. It's keeping up the quality. So this second season's really great. The first season didn't have any bonus features with it. This one, it doesn't have that many. It has like a gag reel, which is at least something, and then like a supplemental feature that's been on all of this like season CW shows like Batwoman and The Flash. It's just like a 30-minute piece on like just superheroes in general. It's kind of hard to describe, but at least they put some effort into the special features this time, like a little bit. And I like owning these on Blu-ray because I don't like having like the compression artifacts from streaming. I like to own it. And so I'm really glad that they're continuing these on Blu-ray. And if you are like me and kind of felt DC TV fatigue, give this one a shot. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I also got that to review, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I like the first season, but I think the second season kind of comes in to its own. And yeah, it definitely looks great. And again, as you say, they did do some like features, bonus features, which is always nice. So yeah, definitely really awesome. And speaking of awesome,
Yes.
we got Wayne's World, and this is the 30th anniversary Blu-ray Steelbook, and it's also kind of worth noting that this only includes the first film. Now there is a re-release recently that has both films. But this is a really nice Steelbook that Paramount put out, and I showed this off in my unboxing video, but we'll take another look here. So this is the inside, which is kind of fun. So this does come with a digital copy. It is not in there right now, but it has that. I believe that this is the same transfer as the 2009 edition, which is good. Room for improvement, but is pretty serviceable. And there's no new features. It's just they ported everything over. Like the main thing is the director commentary. And it was kind of fun to rewatch this because I feel like it's been like 15 years or more since I've seen this movie. And it's kind of weird how a movie from like the early 90s has so many like 60s and 70s references. Like there's that whole Laverne and Shirley bit, which was featured in the inside of this. So yeah, it's but it's fun. The jokes hold up. There's some really great cameos. Chris Farley actually shows up in that, which I completely forgot about. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a little dated. There's some kind of cringe stuff, but it pretty much holds up. And again, I kind of had to feel my my Wayne's World fantasy here.
Yeah. I can barely tell the difference between you and Wayne. It's uncanny.
Get out.
That's one of my favorite movies to return to again and again. I quote it all the time with my wife, and it's so funny. Like you touched on it, but the only thing that kind of disappoints me about this release is that it's not like a new transfer, and like this was the perfect time for a 4K release in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But the Steelbook is really cool. So like I had not upgraded to Blu-ray yet, so I was grateful to get this Steelbook. I hope they come out with the 4K sometime. I need it.
Yeah, and it's kind of surprising because I mean Paramount has been doing a really nice job of taking their vaulted stuff and doing like new scans and everything. So yeah, I'm hopeful. It's funny because I've actually, for whatever reason, did not own either movie prior to this, so that was nice. It's certainly one of those like movies that's just fun to put on and just sort of let the goofiness take you away. So yeah, again, if you already own this, it's there's really nothing like new. It's just a new packaging. So
Yeah. Speaking of music, my next film is going to be one of the rare times where I'm not talking about a high def release, and that is the new release of Summer of Soul from Searchlight Studios. Yes, it is a DVD. They did not release this one on Blu-ray, which kind of breaks my heart because I do really like this documentary. If you want to hear me go really in depth on it, myself and my wife Jessica did a podcast or an episode of our Home Dance Film Festival podcast, which talked about this. It's a great documentary. As of this recording, it was just nominated for Best Documentary at the Oscars yesterday. And it's Questlove's, he found a bunch of archival footage of this iconic festival from the 60s. I think it's called the Harlem Cultural Festival. And that kind of, it was like a huge event that really no one knew about. And it's a really fascinating like glimpse back into the past with some commentary from people from today talking about it and like giving context to it. It's a really great documentary. The reason like I would recommend the DVD is because there is an audio commentary from Questlove, which he really goes into a lot of how he like found this footage and like why he wanted to bring it to life, and like gives a lot of great rich background details. And there's also a couple other special features where he like one dedicated specifically to the process of finding this footage, and the other kind of comparing Harlem from the 60s to how it looks today. And that's kind of like an interesting look. So like I said, while I would have loved a Blu-ray for this one, DVD will have to suffice if you want to own it on physical. But it's such a great documentary. And with that archival footage, you can kind of forgive it because it kind of just goes with the kind of classic dated quality, for lack of a better word. That I think the DVD is like, it's a good release. It's a really good release for a DVD. That's what I'll say.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, definitely have to check that out. Because I love like a great music documentary, especially if it's something that if it's like a genre that I'm not very familiar with. Yeah, I have no good segue into my next one because it's the polar opposite, but it's really a cool release, and it is the Spine of Night 4K from RLJE. And
movie.
Yeah, check that out. That is so awesome. And I did a full review of this, and I can link it in the description. I'll just say that it's a really nice, loving homage to like 80s and 90s sort of high fantasy animation. And so that is the inside. And this actually kind of has some really cool, let me just pop the discs out really quick. So this also features the Blu-ray as well.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how cool is that?
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as it looks, it's kind of complicated because the animation style is purposely more like 2D, and so hence the release looks really nice, but it kind of does look purposely flat. It is definitely a step up from the Blu-ray, but not by leaps and bounds. Having said that, it does look really nice. It has a DTS 5.1 soundtrack, and I have to say it packs a nice punch. Especially when you have something that's like high fantasy like this, you want something that has a lot of atmosphere, and that certainly does. So yeah, and again, it's a really fun watch. The voice talent is excellent, and again, really nice presentation. So very much worth picking up.
Yeah, that Steelbook is so beautiful in person. It's one of my favorite like physical releases that I've gotten this year. Going along that animated journey, I did not intend for this to flow so well, but is okay, just for a bit of context before I jump in, apparently it's becoming a thing with me where I come in and like watch movies that are like the concluding chapter of a long arcing story that I have never seen before. And that's exactly what I did with Gintama, the very final. I did this recently with another Blu-ray I reviewed a couple months ago called Shirobako, the movie, which was a movie that came out after a 2-season anime. This anime, it's been running since 2006, and it's like had 367 episodes and several movies. And like some live action stuff. So like this is like the conclusion of everything from this anime series and the manga concluding here after all these years. So with that said, I did not have all the context when I was watching this, but even like as a newcomer to this like Avengers Endgame type ending that's like everything's been culminating to, I did really enjoy it just as a movie. This like from what I kind of read just a little bit about the series before jumping in, but this movie does a nice job of just being like, here's a quick recap of what you've missed that sets you up very nicely for the beginning. Basically, the first hour of the movie is the conclusion of like it's basically like a good versus evil type situation where one like these two groups of characters who were previously adversaries come together to fiend off this other evil entity. But what kind of sets us apart is kind of the overall tone and like how it goes about. So it has a very like kind of wry, like satirical tone almost. Like it makes a lot of references to like Dragon Ball Z and other animes like that. That's really fun. And there's like a lot of good in jokes for anime fans. But the last 30 minutes is where it kind of loses me because it's really trying to wrap up all of these plot lines from the show that I did like I could on the surface tell what was going on, but I knew there was a lot more like emotional payoff that I was not getting at all. But I did like this movie overall. And it's the type of thing where I like it so much that it makes me want to go back and watch the anime from the beginning. And since my memory is so crap, by the time I get back to it, I'll forget like anyone who died in this and any like everything. So I think it'll all be good. But this comes from Shout Factory. It's a really good release. It has both the original Japanese and an English dub, but like don't go with the English dub. We always appreciate the original language track on this show, I think. I will say it has like a pretty nice little booklet that comes with it as well. It comes with a DVD as well if you need it. Yeah, it's a really good release. And if you're a fan of the show, of course you'll love it. But if you're also looking for like a new interesting anime, I mean, I had fun with it. So maybe you will too.
All right. That sounds awesome. So my next film is from The Film Detective, and it's The Capture.
Oh, cool.
And that's the back. So I had never even heard of this movie, to be honest with you. It actually comes from John Sturges, who did The Great Escape, which Kino previously did on Ultra HD. So it's from 1950, and it's a kind of a weird little film noir. It's sort of low budget. You can kind of tell that it's low budget, but you can also tell that it has a nice sense of direction to it. So this is a 4K scan, and overall it looks really great. One thing about The Film Detective as a label, they never disappoint as far as like how something looks and sounds. Like they've taken some like really rough looking movies and turned them into overall really nice. Now I will say like it's far from perfect. There is like, I don't know if like some of the film elements towards the end were a little bit more on the rough side because you can kind of tell the quality dips a little bit, but I mean, overall it's really nice looking. It's an interesting film. It's, again, it's okay. It's a little bit of a basic noir. There are some like kind of interesting, even borderline perverse things going on, but it's always, it never pushes anything too like outrageous. That sounds kind of vague, but I don't want to give away any the plot details. But yeah, it's interesting. And again, Film Detective always is such an exciting label because they put out obscure things that I've never heard of. And I mean, some are like really fun discoveries. So worth checking out. I mean, especially if you're a fan of the director's later, more well-known work. So
I'll have to check that out. That sounds really interesting because I like John Sturges. So
yeah, again, it's always fun to see like a director's like earlier work. And again, he does a lot with maybe like some like B or C level material. And it has some good actors in it. So
nice. Awesome. I'm going to wrap stuff up for myself here with a double feature. This is more of kind of like a loose thematic double feature for me. I'm kind of stretching a little bit, but each title kind of plays in kind of like a heightened reality. So first, I'm going to go with this Kino Lorber release of an artsploitation film called Playdurizm. This movie is really wild. It's kind of like a dark fantasy where a guy wakes up in an apartment with no memory, except there's like a couple there who the guy part of the couple, he tells him that he does live there with them, but everything seems a little bit slightly off. And this goes to, I don't really want to give away much of this plot because it goes to some really kind of dark places. But I will say that it's a really interesting look at kind of how one deals with trauma. And I don't want to, okay, yeah, I don't want to go much more than that, but it's a lot of violence and a lot of like surreal sexual stuff. And have you seen this movie? I feel like this is something you would have seen.
yeah, I've seen it, but I've been holding back because I don't want to, like, again, like you said, I don't want to give away kind of anything, but I would say that it's very accurate way to describe it.
Yeah, it's, if you like kind of like heightened surrealist fantasy that's like sexual and violent, but kind of from like a queer perspective, I think it's from a first-time director, also star Jim Deeger. And it also has like an audio commentary with the cast and crew that helps like maybe clarify some of like the more opaque points of the movie while also just giving a lot of cool background information on the production. So yeah, if you like daring movies, I guess I would recommend that, but kind of like on a different side of the spectrum, and one that I didn't really enjoy as much, but I think that's what the director probably would have wanted, is Edmond, from director Stuart Gordon, who people might know from Reanimator. And it's also from a play by David Mamet, which he's a controversial figure himself. He likes to push buttons. So this movie is from the early 2000s. It has William H. Macy. It has Julia Stiles in a small role, and a lot of like interesting character actors like George Wendt from Cheers and Joe Mantegna. Yeah. Basically, this is really heavily based on kind of like toxic masculinity, which makes it not a very enjoyable watch. William H. Macy plays a guy who goes to a fortune teller who basically tells him that he is not living the life that he is supposed to be living. And this just kind of unlocks something in his brain where he like decides to divorce his wife. And it takes place over pretty much, for the most part, a night where he just kind of gives in to all of his like male impulses. And the movie purports to like stuff, it delves heavily into like racism and like basically saying like everyone's a little bit racist, and how like how people interact with like black people, like white men interact with black people, and there's a lot of like casual throwing around of the N-word. But I think this is supposed to be provocative and make you feel uncomfortable, and it does. And there's like a lot of violence and like sexual violence and like a lot of sexual frustration bubbling from William H. Macy as he like goes on this male journey. I get what they were going for. It just doesn't make for a super enjoyable time. And I don't think they always handled it with like the nuance that this kind of story would need. William H. Macy is great, but the tone is just really odd. And just like, especially from the movie from the 2000s, I think it was more so enjoying the toxic masculinity too much and really like criticizing the toxic masculinity. I think that's like kind of the wrong tone that hit with me. It's still an intriguing watch. It's just kind of like, it's a lot. It's just a lot. But this is from MVD Entertainment, and I love MVD. They put out great releases. I'm pretty sure this is a slightly older master, but it's a solid master from the early 2000s. It has a feature comment or 2 commentaries. And like, it's a solid release if you like the movie. And if you're a David Mamet fan, by all means, complete your collection. It's just for newcomers, it's a lot.
Yeah, like that's interesting. I'm kind of torn because I am a big Stuart Gordon fan, and but also it kind of loses me at the kind of dude bro aspects. So yeah.
Yeah, cautious recommend.
So my double feature is quite an interesting one from Mondo Macabro, which is The Laughing Woman. So let me in the back.
Nice.
So very weird, interesting movies. So The Laughing Woman is sort of it's from 1969, and it kind of feels like a proto-American Psycho, where you have this like perverse kind of high-powered playboy, and it's like this weird kind of fantasy world that he sort of creates with his like wealth and power. And it has some really interesting twists, and it is like kind of wonderfully surreal and very weird, psychedelic even. It's a little bit predictable. Like there was a twist that so I'm not like the best at like picking up on twists, I will admit, but even I was able to sort of like piece this together, like twist wise. And I will say that like as interesting as it is, it does really drag, especially in the third act. But it's interesting and it's kind of weird. And what I love about Mondo is like they put out really strange, unique stuff. And as much as I love like studio releases, this is always the stuff that like really gets me excited about like physical media, like to have kind of obscure titles like that. And then Succubus is my next one. And yeah, that cover is as subtle as the movie is, which is not very.
Yeah.
And so, oh boy, this one is really something. So it is a folk horror film from Germany. So it's worth noting that if you were getting into folk horror because of Severin's box set, this obviously is, of course, not in the box set, but it makes for a nice companion piece if you're looking to like seek out some more folk horror stuff. So it definitely is really weird. It has a lot of sleaze. There's a lot of like intentional, like uncomfortable moments. And it's frustrating because this movie has a lot of potential. Like the premise is interesting, but sadly, like the plot really moves slow. Like the pacing is really awkward, and I found myself like getting bored, and the film's only 70 minutes long.
Yeah,
that's not great. But again, it is just weird enough. to be interesting and well worth a watch. Like there are some like interesting like setup and payoffs that I thought were really clever. Like one of the things is like, so these are like cheese farmers where they'll like process the dairy and like do the whole cheesecloth thing. Clearly I'm not an expert on that, but to just say that actually kind of ties into sort of the plot. And I thought that was kind of interesting to take that motif and sort of like weave it into the story. So yeah, it's okay. Again, it's frustrating because I wish it could have been a little more concise, a little more interesting. But yeah, again, if you are really digging on some folk horror and you're looking for some other titles that, again, are not in that box set, but you still want to kind of check out some more of those, that is pretty interesting. So yeah, so that seems to be it for our movies. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and share. And also, which release that we discussed are you most excited about? So please let us know in the comments. So until next time.